So it's supposed to be like that. I just don't. Yeah, it's just- Okay. Will you just log who you want? This is your fingerprint. Hit this again. Make sure there's.
All right, good morning, ISD. We've actually got, I sent Ms. Ryder to one of the classrooms really quickly just to make sure the sound was going through. Very garbled. I wasn't talking to the microphone a moment ago. Do you want to go and see how it sounds with someone coming through the microphone? Thank you so much, Ms. Ryder. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So good. High school, most of high school, 10, 11, and 12. So great to have you here. Shout out to grades 6 through 9 that I know are in the classrooms right now. Special shout out to Ms. Blanco's 6th grade PE class from last period for helping us to set up chairs and do some arrangement in here before we started. It sounds fantastic. All right, glad to hear that. It's working in the classrooms as well. Students who are coming in still, if you want to grab some seats in the chairs or kind of fill in on the bleachers as well, that should work for you all. Early February, after the earthquake that had such a horrible, devastating effect on Turkey and Syria happened, a few of you came to me and just said, "Hey, Mr. Guilford, are we going to do anything about this? You guys were seeing the news stories, by the same ones I was seeing. Every day, it seemed like that body count was going up higher and higher. The images that were coming across, you can see that devastation happening." And my gut response to that moment was like, yes, let's do a fundraiser or something. And I realized that although I think it's important for us to respond to these things as they happen around the world, it's really important that we respond in a thoughtful way. And I think it's easy for us to run around the cafeteria with a hat saying, hey, throw some spare change in for folks in Turkey and Syria, and not necessarily feel a connection to the event, not necessarily feel a connection to the place and to the people that have been impacted by these kinds of events as they happen. I know we have a number of Turkish and Syrian students in our student population, parents as well, so families obviously being impacted by this. In our response for ISB, though, I wanted something a little deeper, and I wanted to make sure that students and staff and our community as a whole learned something along the way before we committed ourselves to taking some action. And recognizing that we have community members in our school and that there's a larger Turkish and Syrian community around the Portland metro area, wanting to partner with them in order to be able to make a meaningful experience for students, but then also be able to support as we can. So we've got a couple of things happening this morning. Thanks to some students who are going to come up and they're going to share just some background. I want to make sure people have a sense of the scale of what occurred. And then we have two of our partners that we're working with that they each will also come up and talk about themselves and talk about what their organizations are doing, some personal experiences. And then at the end, we'll come back about what ISB is going to do today, tomorrow, and Friday. And then also what's going to happen later on this month as well. Okay, so that's kind of the scope of today. Like I said, we're live streaming to all the middle schoolers right now, as well as the 9th graders. I've also invited all the parents, so it's a live stream on YouTube. I don't know how many folks are out there watching. Hopefully quite a few. Thank you, ISB, for being here and being part of this. I always, whenever I invite outside individuals in to talk to our students and connect with our students, I have to admit, I always get a little nervous. And then I get nervous. I want everything to go perfect. I want it to be just right. But I also get so incredibly excited when I invite outside people in, because every day I brag about you guys and I brag about just the amazing things that you do. And so to have folks who are partnering with us come in and hear, and for you to be able to hear from them and for them to be able to hear from you, to me is just incredibly, incredibly powerful. So happy to be able to do that. There will be an opportunity for questions. So as we go through the assembly, as you hear from the two different speakers, be thinking of questions. And before I get back on at the very end, we'll take some questions from the audience and then we'll wrap up. Okay, good. All right, I think we are starting off with the three of you. Give a warm hand to your classmates here. And make it together.
A quick fact, in May 2022, Turkey officially changed its name from Turkey to better reflect how it's pronounced in Turkish and avoid confusion with the turkey bird. This year, on February 6th at 4:17 a.m., the border of Turkey and Syria was hit by a 7.8 magnitude earthquake. With hundreds of aftershocks following, 9 hours later, a 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit Turkey 59 miles north of the original. On February 20th, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake hit southern Turkey. Furthermore, on February 27th, a 5.6 magnitude earthquake hit southern Turkey once again. This disaster resulted in almost more than 56,000 deaths and 125,000 injuries, with over 2.4 million displaced people and over 850,000 displaced children. 200,000 buildings are destroyed and hundreds of thousands face homelessness. According to the United Nations Development Program, an estimated earthquake financial burden is $103.6 billion.
And not only have the earthquakes had physical and financial impacts, but they've also had mental health and emotional ones. The earthquakes have deep psychological impact on many of those affected, as close friends, family members may have been lost in the earthquakes, and it can be very traumatic. This is also heightened by the lack of return to normalcy, meaning that the earthquakes had such a deep impact, houses, buildings, or cities ended up being destroyed and are not able to be recovered quickly. There's an estimated $104 billion of damages, and recovery won't come overnight. So the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund estimated that over 5.4 million children are at risk of developing disorders such as anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, which really shows the impact of the mental health impact of the earthquakes. And specifically for the impact on Syria, it's very complicated due to the Syrian civil war. There are areas controlled by rebel forces that have no state actor to help coordinate relief. This makes it very difficult to provide relief. Along with this, there's already an estimated 4.5 million in the affected region. Out of those 4.5 million, 4.1 already relied on humanitarian need for food, clothes, and shelter. And so this is already a struggle, and the earthquake only added to the struggle. The earthquakes caused $5.1 billion estimated of physical damages, and this is only added to with the struggle that the Syrians are facing. And specifically for Turkey, just to show how large and impactful this earthquake is, this is the most deadly earthquake in modern Turkish history, and it's the largest earthquake in the last 80 years for Turkey. Most damage was done to 11 provinces in southern Turkey, and these regions sadly have the highest poverty rates and host 1.5 million Syrian refugees. Earthquake has caused over 1.52 million people to be homeless, and it just shows the large impact this earthquake had in Turkey. You can see in the photos just the physical damages that have been done.
Okay, so we go back one, Mr. Guilford. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the international response really quick. So ignore that. So the World Bank, they have donated the most of any nation or organization. They've donated $1.78 billion to Turkey, and in Syria, they're coordinating relief effort, but due to the complicated governmental situation, nothing has happened yet. The United States, they have donated about 150 million, which is the second most of any nation or organization. And then the United Nations has donated 50 million, and they have agencies on the ground working to support the affected, like UNICEF and the UNDP. Yeah, so now let's go to the local response from the Oregon Turkish Association. So the Oregon Turkish Association, they are a non-governmental NGO dedicated to improving the lives of the Turkish American community through educational, recreational, social, and cultural activities in Oregon without supporting any political or religious agenda. So they were founded to create a community and a welcoming environment to anyone who is interested, and they strive to extend their support to the Turkish American student body in the area, as well as partnering with organizations in the US and Turkey to support humanitarian causes like this disaster. So at ISB, we are very happy and proud to partner today with Orta and Lokanta PDX, which is a local Turkish restaurant, and have two speakers from them as well. We have Mr. Umut Matkap, who is the owner of Lokanta, and Mr. Ozcan Ertem, the secretary of the Oregon Turkish Association. So first, Mr. Umut Matkap, the owner and chef of Lokanta, a Turkish restaurant in Portland, and he will share a bit about his family's experiences in Turkey. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Umut Matkap once again.
That you can tell that's a picture from at least like 5-6 years, yeah. Oh, sorry. Thanks for coming in, thanks for helping. I would say like one of the most important thing for me, besides the financial, situation, I would say like, being aware of what's going on in Turkey and especially my hometown. That's pretty important for me to people know, I want to say. And I super appreciate for you to come in and, support. I want to talk about myself very quick. I was born and raised in a city called Antakya, which is one of the oldest in Turkey. Has one of the oldest church, one of the oldest mosque. It's like super cosmopolitan, super diverse place. And I was super proud of it since I was a kid. I love my hometown, but it got hit by the earthquake pretty badly, I would say. My mom, my sister, my grandma, they all like the apartments did not collapse, but at the same time they have cracks and this and that. So as Caleb told, we had the second one at around 6 a.m. in the morning. That at that time, since we had the first one, my mom, my grandma, and my sister, they were able to leave, and they were, able to get the car keys and go away from the, earthquake zone. But my uncle wasn't that lucky, and I lost my uncle, my mom's brother, and whole family spent like, I want to say like 6-7 days in a car. And they even like, if you had money, you were not able to put some gas into your car because there is no gas station, cracks on the freeways, no airports, no help, arrived like immediately. So that was like pretty stressful for me as well. I would say I was able to reach them. They got some, gas with some Coca-Cola bottles and fill it up. Pay cash and able to turn on the heater. It was super cold as well. But yeah, I'm lucky to see my mom, my sister, and my grandma, to be honest, and I'm super grateful. About me and Lokanta, I believe that's the only Turkish restaurant in the whole state of Oregon. We are trying to make some dishes, especially from Western Turkey and Southeast Turkey from my hometown. And, open in the middle of the pandemic, and super happy about my job. I love my restaurant, but yeah, it's lovely to see the support. And again, thank you so much for helping. Yeah.
Okay, So now we are going to welcome Mr. Ozcan Ertem, Secretary of the Oregon Turkish Association.
Hello, ISB. I'm a parent of IB international graduates now also. So it's good to be here. This was my first opportunity to be here. We moved from Turkey, the recent one. I'm still trying to transition from Turkey to Turkey as well. Back in 2017. Since then, living in the area. I'll just talk a little bit about ORTA. It's not that clear, but I'll give it the name. ORTA is Oregon Turkish American Association. Before going to that, I just wanted to show for those who may not be familiar with where Turkey is. Turkey is on the southeast part of Europe to the west of Asia. So half of it is in the Asian part, half of it, a small part of it in Europe. The neighbors from the northeast, I would say, the country of Georgia, the country of Armenia, the country of Azerbaijan, a little border with that, Iran, Iraq, and Syria at the south. On the northwestern, we have borders to Bulgaria and Greece. As you can see on the top, we have Ukraine and Russia. War is going on over there. And on the south, of course, it's just, we have heard, it's just the civil war going in Syria. So it is a kind of a troublesome geography. The sea over there is Black Sea, and to the north of Turkey. And the only way to access to that one is through the channels in Istanbul and Dardanelles. So that makes things a little more strategically important in geography. Geography also have other surprises. These are the fault lines along the country of Turkey. You see there's one on the north part going all the way from east to west. And then there's one on the south. So the one on the southeast part is pushing the one on the center, and that's where we have this earthquake is. So this is affected 11 Turkish and 2 Syrian cities, about 11 million people living, and as we have heard, about 1.5 million Syrian refugees also living in Turkey side affected too. So far, 15,000 plus people are confirmed dead, but I think once the rubbles are cleaned up, the number may go beyond 100K. That's what we're all afraid of. This is not so clear in picture, but this is where the earthquake hits. It's not just one, it is 2, and that's 2 different fault lines. I would say within the 16 days or so, there were 440 shocks, 2 of them about 7, 2 of them about 6, and the others like 5 and 4. So it's a big devastating shock for everyone. At this point, I'll try to switch over to the little films. There are some films attached to this one. Switch for same page. The one on the right. This is the one I picked up. A tree split by the fault line, about like, I would say 30 feet apart, the other half of the tree. How the Mother Nature works. I'm going to leave this presentation to you so that if you need to get these details, you can have more. The other one would be this one. This is a drone picture. This is an olive tree field. Used to be both sides attached to each other. And you can see how that earthquake split into two. One thing that is noticeable on the far upper end, there's a one-store building surviving. So what I was going to say is, even though Mother Nature is so strong in forces, good engineering and a good construction principles may actually save the buildings. You can see it up there, still surviving. There was no valley like this before the earthquake. So it's very hard to keep an air. You can see how deep it is. I would say perhaps 60 feet down. So no structure can survive on top of this. So it's better to keep it without any construction when you feel like there's a fault line going underneath. And see if I can make this one right as well. All right, this is Google Earth pictures where the fault line actually splits the town into two. What I was going to show, if it stayed over there, is again, there were some schools next to this fault line, perhaps like a couple of 100 feet away. Still, if they're constructed good, they can survive. That's what we see. Unfortunately, this was not the case in many of the buildings over the cities where we have this suffering. Now I think we may go back to the original presentation. That's great. Thank you. So we start talking about international efforts. I specifically want to mention this one. There were 7,000 rescuers from 74 countries rushed to Turkey and Syria. Syria was kind of troublesome because of that civil war thing. So Turkey was kind of a little luckier than Syria in that sense. In addition to Turkish rescue teams. So United States on the upper left picture was one of the first to respond, sending out rescue teams. These teams are basically there within the first week to save people out of the rubbles, because that first week is the most crucial one, because people cannot stay longer than we had cases where we saved people after like 220 hours, but that's so rare to see. It's mostly in the first week of this earthquake. I'd like to mention a couple of countries. Among these 74 countries, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Greece, Northern Cyprus, South Korea, China, Japan, Iraq, Iran, India, Pakistan, Mexico, Colombia, El Salvador, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, and Palestine. Why I put those? Because I think those countries, everyone just left everything behind. Whatever their previous thoughts were, they rushed for the relief. So as a Turkish citizen, Turkish American citizen, I would say we are so grateful. And such a gathering for a humanitarian cause is terrible to see, but it is so nice to see. And I think it greatly increased our hopes to a better, more peaceful world in the future. We start talking about Orta, and we raise a small money each year among our members, and that's where we use, like 2020, you would see, you will feel what is needed there. In those days, one of the most local support we did was to Black Lives Matter, and you can see all the other organizations. Bridge to Turkey, I'll come later on. in 2021, we have the, of course, COVID case too. So that's why we try to support the local organizations like Oregon Symphony, Oregon Zoo, because no one was going out there. We're trying to do some donations to local organizations, and similar to 2022 as well. These are the organizations that we put our donations into. Of course, with the earthquake, that's a different story. There are two Turkish organizations, non-profit, non-governmental organizations. One of them is Bridge to Turkey, and the other one is Turkish Philanthropy Funds. So these are the two legal organizations that are allowed to send money from United States to Turkey for mostly for humanitarian reasons. So we pick those two as ORTA. We don't send money to Turkey, we send through these organizations. And to whom we were sending, that is to Ahbap. Ahbap means dude in Turkish language. That's an organization, again, a non-governmental, non-profit organization, run by a couple of celebrities, I would say, singers mostly, but people really gathered around them. I've just checked the one on the right lower, Haluk Levent is one of the singers. And I've checked his website, the Instagram, it's 4.7 million people about this earthquake thing. If you ever click that one, you will see how they organized in the disaster area, like the container school they set up. Now the kids' education started there in almost every cities in the disaster area. So that's the organization we sent our money through in the first response. Of course, there are other things that we plan to do. The next one, and during this earthquake, also we had in-kind donations too. For in-kind donations, we're so grateful to UPS for sending out those donations. We were able to send double truckload donations from here, but it's not easy. So that's why we prefer to send out money rather than in-kind donations to Turkey. The next step will be, unfortunately, while pulling out kids out of the rubbles, many have to be amputated by hands or legs due to the squeeze down the concrete. So the new thing is, here in Portland area, doctors and IT companies are coming together with doctors and IT companies in Turkey and create this, again, a nonprofit initiative. It's called CATE. It stands for Child Amputees of Turkey Earthquake. What we're planning to do is we're going to provide some data and some raw materials from here to Turkey so that they will be 3D printing the prosthetics for hands and legs, and then let the kids who have to be amputated will use this. And because they are kids, they have to grow up and have to replace them in a very short period of time. That's why we believe this is the next step that we should be using our money into. So that's how we're going to spend the next step, next donations to. Here are some links for the ORTA for donations. But today we're here with Umut's nice little food. So that's what we're going to do for the money. And in this case, I would like to thank all you as ISB students for showing your awareness about this earthquake and how we're responding to. Thank you, Principal Andrew Guilford. Yeah. Spent a lot of time to make this presentation happen. So thank you, Maria, Matthew, Sophia, Anna, Nick, Abby, Caleb, Sashan, Aya, Hatice, and Maran.
Before we talk more specifically about what ISB will be doing in the next few days, and then towards the end of this month as well, wanted to open up to any questions anybody might have, either for Ozcan or for Umut. Questions? This is like that part of the IB Learner profile that says inquirers and also says risk takers. This is the opportunity to like demonstrate that part. Yes, fantastic. Vincent, go ahead.
The question is, Turkey ever had any earthquakes? And this is the first one. I think Turkey is sitting right on the faults where today's Turkey is. So every 30 years or so, there are like earthquakes about magnitude 7. This particular one has been silent for 150 years. So that's why the crack was so big in this case. But yes, Turkey is on the top of this earthquake.
Other questions? Yes. Vern.
Are there any other countries affected by this earthquake?
Other question was, other countries affected by this earthquake?
Syria, of course, the fault line just go through Syria, but the same earthquake has been felt in the island of Cyprus. And I would expect it to be felt in Iraq as well, perhaps in Lebanon and Israel. So everyone will be shaken, but the shock was there in Turkey and Syria.
Earthquakes sort of the largest risk on an ongoing basis in Turkey? Is that what you're asking?
Earthquakes are, yes, one of the largest threats, I would say. And Turkey is trying to improve, I think, the construction work as well, because what we say in Turkish is it's not the earthquake that kills, it's the buildings that kills people.
So one of the things that Ozcan mentioned that really struck me, and as he gave that list of countries that have reached out and donated money or equipment or personnel to help things, many of those countries are at war with each other. And it strikes me that when tragedy of this scale, a disaster of this scale happens, there's something about the human spirit that in spite of our conflicts makes us come together to try to resolve it, try to help. That I think as human beings, we automatically feel something when something happens, regardless of what's going on in our world, regardless of what's going on in our lives, and we reach out. It also struck me as you were naming some of the things that are happening on the ground now, the printing of prosthetics, that type of thing. Obviously, long-term, the reconstruction of housing. It's really easy for us here in the United States to forget about it because it's not in the news any longer. And that initial disaster, when it happens, it catches all of our attentions. There's great news footage of it. But then as the disaster takes place over the next 10 years, it's easy for us to forget it because we're not there and we don't see it in the news anymore. So the fact that this occurred, or the initial earthquake was now over a month ago, doesn't mean that this is over. This is an ongoing thing. People's lives are going to be changed forever, literally forever. So ISB is doing a couple things to try to raise funds that will go through ORTA to some of the organizations that Ozcan mentioned. Okay. Umut gave us this incredibly generous donation today, a number of different items from his restaurant that will be on sale during all 3 lunches. So we encourage you to go and have some just incredibly Turkish food today. There's a cost to that, obviously. That's part of the money being raised. My wife and I went out to dinner at his restaurant on last Friday night, and every bite of each thing that we had was just absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for your generosity. For a number of items, both some craft items as well as some kind of to-go food items that we'll have set for sale again tomorrow and on Friday, again during lunches. All of the funds from that, again, is going to get channeled through Orta to some of the nonprofits that they're working with on the ground in Turkey. April 28th, we are going to hold, which is a Friday night, we're going to hold a ticketed event here at ISB. You and your families are invited to that. There's a cost per person for that. We'll have some information that we're going to share. We're working right now to have some a Turkish band there to provide some music. There'll be a silent auction. So a number of ways to sort of raise money. Amutz and Lakanta have agreed to cater that event for us as well. And so it's a way for us to come together as a community, to learn a little bit more, and then also to give back. So if that's something you're interested in, parents, if you're watching on YouTube right now, if that's something that you're interested in, there'll be some more information coming out shortly after spring break with details around that and costs for tickets. Just a great way for our community to come together and be with each other also as we continue to support the ongoing needs that are happening there. With that, any sort of final questions? Final thoughts? Sako, I can see you pointing over there somewhere, so there must be a hand. Stand up, so I can't stand up there. Oh yeah, Sophia, go ahead. So how long until there's a sense of normalcy back in Turkey?
This is the biggest earthquake country of Turkey has ever had. The one in 1999, and I was very close to that one too. It took, I would say, 5 to 6 years to reconstruct the cities, at least. This will take much longer in that sense, but the effect on people, I think it goes as long as they live. We have one Turkish American here who survived from that earthquake. And she said when she heard this earthquake, all the memories just came up live for her. And so it's not easy to recover mentally. That's the hardest part.
The music you hear is actually our passing time music to show that our timer is over. Can you guys give a huge round of applause?